This is actually the 100th anniversary of the 1906 fire, so let's celebrate a little destruction today. It's called Nob Hill. It's named after the Hindu word nabob, which means a person of great wealth. At one time, this was the most expensive real estate in San Francisco. It's kind of a gray area today, what the exact borders of Nob Hill are. But if you're a real estate agent, of course, it extends for miles around. Look up from anywhere you are in the city and you can see Nob Hill and the rich people. And you can even take a cable car and watch them putter around their house if they happen to be home. My name is Jack Boulware. I'm a journalist, writer here in San Francisco. So what we're going to do is just take a tour of Nob Hill and relive a little of these moments, talk about some of the architecture and the buildings that were once here. A few of them are still standing, and I'll relive my horrible day job at the Fairmont. Okay, behind us is the Fairmont Hotel, the location for the TV series Hotel in the 1980s, if anybody remembers that. This was originally land purchased by a silver baron named Bonanza Jim. His name was James G. Fair. He was also known as Slippery Jim, and after a number of marital indiscretions, his wife divorced him. He was unable to afford the mansion, and so it was never built. So after his death, his daughters decided to make a monument to him and actually built this building. Today, it is still the site of many marital indiscretions. Beginning in the 1880s up until the 1906 fire, there were mansions built here that were entire blocks long. It was basically railroad and silver barons trying to outdo themselves. As fate would have it, they all burned to the ground in the 06 fire. So there's a lesson for you there, I suppose. Or maybe not. Building on a fault line, certainly. Most of these buildings were built by these four guys. They call them the Big Four. They're responsible for building the first coast-to-coast railroad in the United States. It was built with Chinese labor. So there's something that continues to this day, appropriating other people who would willingly work for peanuts to make other people rich. There was Leland Stanford, there was Collis Huntington, there was Mark Hopkins, and there was Charles Crocker, who was in charge of construction. These houses here were so incredible. They would import entire slabs of marble from Italy. People would go on giant shopping sprees to buy artwork to hang in the buildings. They didn't even care what the artwork was or who did it, much like rich people today. This is a park called Huntington Park, and this is where David Colton built the first mansion on Nob Hill. This was donated to the city after the fire with a stipulation that it be made into a park. And if you're old and arthritic and you have a tiny chihuahua with a sweater, it's the perfect place to come. The building behind me is the Mark Hopkins Hotel. It was built after the 06 quake. When returning GIs from World War II would come through San Francisco on their way home from the Pacific, they would always go to the top of the Mark because there's a big ballroom dance floor there, and that's where a lot of them danced their GI blues away. Behind me is Grace Cathedral. This was built in 1964. Before it was built, this entire block that you see here on Nob Hill was one mansion. Okay, behind us here is a structure called the Pacific Union Club. It's one of those old fraternal organizations that's kind of based around exclusivity and catheters and colostomy bags. Now over here, this is the building called the Brocklebank Building. This is built in 1926, and people know it mostly because of the film Vertigo by Alfred Hitchcock. This was where Kim Novak lived. It was also appeared in the film The Lady in Red with Gene Wilder. Not a Hitchcock film, really. Imagine, you know, the 1890s, you're worth $1 billion. You're looking out on San Francisco Bay. There's hardly any buildings in the city yet. There's hardly any boats. Well, there might be some boats. You'd think you were God. And all you did was, you know, hire some Chinese people and build a railroad.